A blockade in the South China Sea. That's what the darling of the Filipino media, Ray Powell, is saying in a tweet about what China will do in the Huangyan Dao in the coming days. He's a former U.S. Air Force serviceman who now heads a Sealight Maritime Transparency Project, a project that's overtly countering China. He warned China will blockade Filipino vessels carrying activists, foreign observers, journalists and fishing crew to what is known in English as Scarborough Shoal, a disputed area. What exactly is this Ray Powell up to? Who's behind him? Welcome to a special edition of The Point with me, Li Xin, coming to you live from Beijing. I'm pleased to be joined from Beijing by Ana Rosario Malindogui, Vice President for External Affairs of the Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute, and here in the studio by Aina Tangan, Senior Fellow of the Taihe Institute. Welcome to The Point to both of you. So, first of all, who's who here? Aina, let me go to you. This guy, as I said, Aina, look at me. This guy, as I said, is Ray Powell. He's tweeting all the time about the South China Sea, about China. Who is this guy? Who funds him?
Okay. So, yes, he served for 35 years in the military. He did tours in Iraq, Afghanistan. He then was a military attaché in both Vietnam and Australia. So he's true blue, military. He's now funded by the Office of Naval Research, ONR, which funded this group called the Gordian Knot, which then funds Sealight. So yes, he's funded by the U.S. government.
Who's funding? So the Office of Naval Research.
Yes,
is?
Naval Intelligence is funding through Stanford University.
All right.
All right.
Well,
this Gordian Knot Center, which is in turn funding this Sealight project. Now, why would Stanford University, prestigious, well-known university, allow itself to be used in essence as cover for naval propaganda? And the answer is quite simple. They receive $1.5 billion a year in 2022 as part of their ongoing research, so it's hard to say no.
All right. There is this mission called Atin Ito in Filipino language. Maybe you can explain that, which is pushed by this fringe activist group called Akbayan. And it seems that there is some kind of relationship, but it's pretty obscure. Anna, could you help us untangle that, the relationship between the activities who are pushing for these so-called civilian missions, and is their relationship with the Ray Powell and his project and the Office of the Naval Research? Aina, do you happen to have answers for that?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. I didn't heard of this group, but you know, as we have talked about before, in the United States we spend $90 billion on intelligence and disinformation. This is part of that. It's not a coincidence that you have somebody who's saying there's not enough negative information being garnered put out by the U.S. government. We're going to solicit fake, groups, think tanks, etc., to put out a message that fits our narrative. Now, in terms of the Philippines, obviously the United States has very, very deep tendrils there. We have bases there. It is divided. There are people in the Philippines who feel very strongly that the U.S. is their ally, despite the historical facts. And yeah, you can always find some group that is willing to be part of any kind of, especially anti-China initiative.
It's very interesting, the kind of information that's put out by Ray Powell and the website called Sealight. By the way, they're doing a lot. They're putting out a lot of information. He's also tweeting a great deal. It seems that he's very passionate about it. And he says that China, on the website, says that China is advancing, his claims, mind the word advance, and he said China is going to blockade the civilian missions for Philippines. And to me, these terms seem to try to portray, they're colored terms. They try to portray an image of China that is big, powerful, a bully, aggressive. What is your take?
Well, I read up on him in Mumbai. He attended a conference and they had a very frank discussion. He said China's the enemy. We have to do everything we can. And he said, India and the U.S. have to contain China. Those were his exact words, yes.
Wow.
So he says it's a communist country, it's oppressive, authoritarian. He really either believes in the Kool-Aid he's drinking, or it's just part of his environment.
And he's using some interesting terms. For instance, he's saying China is adopting this gray zone tactic, and that Philippines needs to adopt assertive transparency. Is that a latest lingo from the State or the Pentagon?
No, that's just him. And my guess is that he's not alone. The number of tweets that he has generally come along with a staff.
Yeah, you can't possibly do that single-handedly.
No.
It's unbelievable.
Well, no. And there's several of these things. I mean, the U.S. is quick to say that people are using bots and that they're weaponizing research. But, here's the irony. Here's a guy who's running around talking about transparency.
Yeah.
Well, but he's not very transparent about his funding or his background or the fact that he just
find
hates
his
China.
funding information on the website. You don't find the funding.
You have to dig.
You have to dig, yeah, exactly. And then if you look at the pictures coming out of the press this morning, the civilian mission that I mentioned, for instance, it's very interesting the use of words: civilian missions, observers, fishermen, and the failed attempt to provide Christmas supplies for the fishing crew that are stuck in the Huangyan Dao, and the use of the word blockade. Are they trying to pull at people's heartstrings and play victim? Look, China is the big bully that's going to blockade. And by the way, blockade is the word you use for the former Soviet trying to blockade Berlin with the Americans, the West airdropping packages of hope.
Listen, you can't take this stuff seriously. I mean, obviously they're using word packages where they say, okay, here are the terms that we will be using when we put out their tweets. And that's probably going out to the staff. And they say, okay, we need to produce 1,000 tweets in the next week. So just go at it. And here are the terms you use.
I'm really interested in the choice of words.
Those are creative. You can actually go on.
The word blockade, for instance.
Well, you can go on AI and say, I want pejorative, negative terms to describe what China's doing. It'll give you a list of those terms, and then you use that as a style sheet. See, remember we talked about the U.S. government spent $300 million a year to educate journalists how to write negative stories about China. And a lot of that has to do with the selection of words. Yeah. So when you go to the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, you'll notice that they use exactly the same vocabulary when they're describing China.
With the same kind of color.
This is a style sheet.
Yeah, so watch out what you're getting. I'm told that we can try again to reach Anna, so I'm trying again. Anna, I was asking you about the so-called civilian mission that's called Atin Ito, pushed by this activist called Akbayan. Is there a relationship between them and the various projects that I mentioned, heralded by the U.S. Navy Research Office and this guy called Ray Powell?
Okay, let me explain a little bit about Atin Ito, or in English it's called This Is Ours. It is now conducting what you call a convoy in the Scarborough Shoal. But the very purpose, as far as the organizer is concerned, is to assert what you call Philippine rights in that area of the South China Sea. In terms of connection between Ray Powell and his project Satellite and Project Mushu, and I think in terms of connection with the current Philippine government, there is some kind of alleged speculations that it is funded as well by the United States and also, of course, by the Philippine government to a greater extent. And in a way, you can see that there are communication and connection between Ray Powell and some of the organizers as well of this Atin Ito coalition. And of course, the very intent of this is why they're doing this kind of convoy in the Scarborough Shoal area is to challenge actually China's claim in the South China Sea, especially in Scarborough Shoal. Also to have a media hype and projection that the civilians, the Filipino civilians, are asserting the rights, especially the exclusive economic rights of the Philippines, and to a greater extent also this is a publicity stunt, because many media personalities and media practitioners are part and parcel of this convoy. So that's basically the short and brief description of this activity right now.
Anna, let me come back to you once again. How do you look at China releasing images, for instance, of Chinese Coast Guards conducting rescue drills near the Huangyan Dao in this week, together with aerial footages for the very first time of the feature? What do you read as a message in there? And also, there was a deleted tweet about the spokesperson of the Filipino Armed Forces about a successful resupply mission to the Rengai Jiao, or the second Thomas Shoal, but it was later deleted very quickly there.
Sorry,
this is for Anna.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Okay, let me quickly answer the question. I think the drills that the Chinese side is doing, if I would be reading it from a Chinese perspective, it's more of, I think, of assertion of sovereignty over this area of China, as it claims that it has sovereignty in this area. The second thing is the drill could also be seen as China's strategy of normalizing its presence in the Scarborough Shoal, though many people would say that it is a disputed area. And most importantly, I think the drills being conducted by China at the moment, or even in the near future, would also be, for some outsider like me, could be interpreted as well as a response and a reaction to the perceived provocation of the Philippines, especially if you look at the situation right now. You have this convoy of this coalition Atin Ito. And then, that's just the way I see it. No? And we know that China is claiming the area, and it claims that it has sovereignty over the area. So basically, it's a reinforcement of that claim.
What about the deleted tweet?
And on the other hand, when you talk about the deleted tweet, I think it has been done precisely because there is now a transcript that has been released by the China side saying that there's really what you call a new model agreement agreed between the two sides, China and the Philippines. But of course, on the Philippine side, they are denying it publicly, and they're saying that it's AI generated, it's not true. But the China side is very consistent that there's a new model.
All right.
And of course, there's a transcript that will prove to that as far as China is concerned. So I think that is a move to support the statement of the concerned government officials in the Philippines.
Well, the Chinese side has yet to release officially that transcript, according to my knowledge. But many thanks to Anna joining us online. And finally, Aina here. The fishermen are obviously, the Filipino fishermen are obviously allowed to fish in the disputed area. What does that say about the way China wished to resolve the disputes, wherever they are, whatever it is?
Well, China is trying to say that this is a shared asset among ASEAN nations and China. It is not the concern of outside interests, especially the United States, which has this idea about containing China. It's simply trying to get along with its neighbors.
Well, let the countries in the region deal with this through dialogue, consultation, instead of some third powers trying to make bigger waves in the South China Sea on top of the problems we may have. Many thanks to Aina Rosario from the Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute and Aina Tangan here.